Okay, so I don't have to introduce myself because you guys know me, right? What I want to talk about today is a couple note-taking apps that I've been using over the last couple years. And I'm just going to start with a little bit of an overview of the two apps that I'm going to talk about, Logseq and Notion. And for Logseq, taking and retrieving notes, productivity, and flashcards. With Notion, I'm going to talk about lecture notes, Notion as a presentation tool, and flashcards. Anything jump out at you as something you're interested more in than one other topic, just so I can know what to focus on?
Just show everything.
Okay. Before I get started going into those details, I just wanted to give you some information about how you can personally use these apps. For Logseq, it can be used as a desktop app on your computer, or it can be a phone app. It's a free and open source app. And when you store data in this app, it's going to be stored on your personal device. So if you're using your phone, it'll be stored on your phone. If you use your computer, it'll be stored on your computer. People who are concerned about privacy of their information and data really like that because your information is not out in some cloud on the internet or network. But because of that, your data, if you decide to use Logseq in multiple places, like on your phone and on your computer, the data is not going to be synced between those two devices. You can pay the app to sync it for you. You can use other apps to help you sync the data among those devices.
How about the same device like iPad and iPhone?
You would, because it's not in a cloud, because they're two separate devices, it would be on that particular device. So if you had it on the iPad, it would be on the iPad. If it was on your iPhone, it would be on the iPhone. So the app doesn't, because it's not going to a network anywhere, it's going to be just on your device. The Logseq app uses a markdown format, which is like a very common standard writing language for the internet, for web writing. And you can kind of compare that and contrast that with how we would do like a Word document. A Word document, you have buttons that you click to bold, underline and things like that. Whereas a markdown language, you're going to have text that you type on there, and the text that you type tells it to bold certain parts of it. And so it's a different writing style than what you have in a Word document.
So you have to type, there's no pen, like you can write it down using pen. You
No.
have to type.
Yeah, you can add pictures and music. You can add all kinds of files to it and reference, because it's saved on your computer, so it's just going to link to somewhere on your computer. So you can add things like that, but mostly what people do is just type out the words. Now, comparing that to Notion, Notion is an app that you would create an account on. The information would be stored in the cloud. And so you can access it from a browser, from a desktop app, a phone app. It's free for personal or individual use. And that data is in a cloud. It's stored and it's going to be synced among all the devices that you use it. Notion is going to be like a Word document in the sense that you are going to have buttons and things that you can click to make the text look like you want it to look. So it's more familiar in that way. Let's take a look at Logseq. So with Logseq, I want to talk to you about how, like my intuition to take notes is, just in general. If I were years ago, just my intuition would be, I take a piece of paper to a meeting and I'm going to write on that piece of paper. I might store that in a notebook and I that notebook has a tab for that department meeting or that committee meeting, so that I can access it later. The issue with that is that sometimes information comes up in the meeting and you don't remember, was it this meeting or was it that meeting or this committee, and you don't know where you stored your files. So Logseq takes a different perspective on how you write your notes. They have a journal format, and you write your notes on your daily journal, and then you tag your journal with where you want to organize it. And sometimes pieces of your journal will be tagged with multiple things because it belongs in multiple places. So as I was preparing for this presentation, I tried to use Logseq to brainstorm and get ideas. And so you can see I had an idea for how I wanted to introduce the apps to you. I brainstormed, I just typed some things out. When I was done typing it out, I started to do the tagging. So you can see I've tagged. There's a hashtag Notion. When you put that into the app, it creates a page for that information. And now that whole paragraph is going to show up on the page titled Notion. And any other time in my note-taking, if I do that, it's all going to show up in the same place. So I don't have, the app organizes it for me once I'm putting these tags on there.
So, I'm sorry, Mandy. So it's almost like setting up a file then, in that you've called one file Notions and you've called another file Student Use, and by tagging it, it's just going to compile that all in the same spot, rather than me pulling those.
Yeah, so I've got this one paragraph that I wrote.
Yeah.
And I've tagged it with Notion, I've tagged it with lecture notes, I've tagged it with Student Use.
Okay.
That paragraph is now going to show up on the page called Notion. It's going to show up on the page called lecture notes. It's going to show up on the page Student
Super.
Use, so that you're not hunting for it, because it's where you put those tags
So
in.
the app knows from the content of the.
From the tagging.
From the
of the
tag.
tag.
Yeah.
From the tag. And then it's so easy because you don't have to keep pulling things yourself
Mm-hmm.
constantly over into.
Right.
Cool.
Exactly.
Really cool.
And there you can see there are two different ways you can tag. You can tag with the hashtag, and that people usually use that if your page name is just one word. If you're going to make your page name multiple words, they use these double brackets around it. So I took a picture of one of the tags so you could see how the app does it. So this is the page that I tagged Logseq. Every time I've tagged something with Logseq, it shows up. This one showed up in my journal. It showed up under Student Use. This is a page called Student Use, and I tagged it, and this is a page, Productivity, that I tagged Logseq in. So it's pulling in information from when I've taken notes previously. I do want to point out to you the to-do. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I have a question. I noticed in the previous page for the student use, you have two words for the student use, but you didn't use
The bracket.
the double bracket. So it doesn't matter. You could use either or.
Yes, you can use either or. And what happens is once you've tagged something once, you can hit hashtag and start to type that word, and it gives you a little box with pre-populated pages that you've created, so you can select a page you've already created.
So I'm just gonna follow up on that. So if you've forgotten what you called something, you can start it and then go, okay, I don't want to start a new page. I
Exactly.
call this one student use. I don't want to call it student usage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And there's a spot in the app where you can see all pages, so you can see names you've used before. Yeah, it's very cool. So I mentioned the to-dos there. You can add on any line a to-do. You hit Control Enter, and it turns that into a little checkbox to-do. And then to-do can be a page. So you can click on that to-do page, and it pulls from your journals, from everywhere else, any to-do that you've created. I think this is a really cool feature of the app. It automatically does this. It takes the pages that you've created and makes a graph. Links, the different nodes here you see are different pages I created, and then you see connections between them. And this can help you visualize how whatever you're working on is connected to each other. As I said, I was using this to prepare for my presentation. And the 3 nodes that you see at the top, Task Coach, Logseq, and Notion, those are the 3 apps that I planned on talking about. And as I started to fill out, what do I want to talk about with these apps? It populated, or I created pages for productivity, meeting notes, flashcards, lecture notes as a presentation tool. And take a look at what Task Coach is connected to. It's only connected to productivity. I don't have anything for note-taking for that app. And so it doesn't make sense to be in this presentation on note-taking apps. And so I cut that app out of the presentation because it didn't make sense in the context of what I was doing. So it kind of helped me refocus on what my goal for this presentation was.
So Task Coach is a different app.
Task Coach is a different app. It's more for tracking tasks. So like it's basically a bunch of to-do lists that you can put in there, which I really like that app a lot. It just doesn't make sense for this presentation. So let's say you have something, there's something in your notes, you took notes on it, but you never tagged it. There's a search feature. You can search. Toggle is a word that I knew I didn't make a tag for. I searched for it. Every time I've mentioned toggle in any note shows up here, and I can click on what I want to see. A question came up last night of whether if you search for it, is it easy to turn that into a page and tag it? It's not. You have to click on every individual one to turn it into a page, but you still can search, and it does bring up what you were looking for. To-dos. As I said, you can make a to-do page, so it brings in all of that information. And you're able to also schedule the to-dos with a date on there as well. It's got repeater. I haven't really tried a lot of the scheduling and the setting recurring to-dos yet, but hopefully as I get to know the app more, I'll learn how to use those things. Okay, I want to talk about course planning. A lot of teachers in the room, so I know maybe you do something similar. This is my process over the past probably 5 or 6 years. When I'm starting a new semester, I have a Word document, and every time I forget to do something, like, oh, I didn't change that link that I was supposed to in Canvas, or oh, on the syllabus, I forgot to rewrite that paragraph, I just add it to this list so that when the next semester comes around, hopefully I'm not going to forget it, and I go through this list of things. So the process has worked well for me, but I thought, okay, how can I integrate this into the app? So in the app, oh, by the way, the document, I also put my frequently used language, like when I'm filling out smarter proctoring forms and I have to add all this language about whether they can use formulas or calculators and things like that. So I store my commonly used language in the document as well. So now I'm trying to transition this to the app. How can I make it work for me in the app? Well, in the app, you can make templates. I can make a template for starting the semester. At the beginning of the semester, I want to choose my office hours, add my courses to the Outlook calendar, add my office hours to the Outlook calendar. This is something that I do every single semester. So make a template, and when the new semester starts, I can add this to my to-dos. I can make a form, a template form for what information I need to fill out the syllabus, to update Canvas, to update my math lab. What kind of information do I need before I get started so that once I start editing, I can go through it quickly. I have everything I need. The document I showed you, I've turned it into a template and organized it with what edits I need to make for the syllabus, for Canvas, for my math lab, all these different things so that I'm not trying to keep it all in my brain. Just one little side note here. On the right side of this image, you see the 23 seconds that it has there.
Mhm.
This is not something that I personally use, but the app is capable of this, so I wanted to tell you about it. When you have a to-do, there are 3 phases that you can put that to-do: doing, and done. And if you are interested in tracking your time, how long you're working on a task, you can change the status from to-do to doing, and it's going to keep track of when you started the task and when you mark it as complete. So it'll show you how long you worked on that task. This was a happy accident. I accidentally switched it to doing and then right back to do. So it tracked that time. Okay, so then I can also store my frequently used email language. You've got that email that you always send to your students when they ask the same question that you get 20 times. Instead of typing it again, use the stored language. Use the stored language when you are filling out the smarter proctoring forms. So what would course planning look like for me? I start the semester out making a page in Logseq, a page with all of my classes. Each class gets its own page. Then I can refer to my template. It shows me all the templates that I've created, and I can put in my course planning template for that class. And now I've added it and I can schedule it. This needs to be started or done by a certain date. And this will show up in my to-do list to work on. So I'm very early in implementing this. And I've tried many systems before. So we'll see how this one goes. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Sure.
I definitely need how much time you spend on it. I definitely need that. I've got to get some control over how much time I spend on things.
Yeah. Okay, so next is going to be
So does it indicate that you're done with it? Like if you put it in the done or not?
Yeah.
And does it go away or does it stay?
Well, there are ways to filter the to-dos in different ways. So you can you tell the page how you want it to filter. So you tell the page, I only want to see to-dos that are in the to-do status. I only want to see the ones in the doing, or I only want to see the ones done. So you can change it to fit whatever your needs are, because you can add filters to those pages.
That's a really important point to me, because you know how we're often hopping, or I'm in the middle of something, and then I go over, and then I have to think about, okay, what was I in the middle of doing? What was I supposed to get done today? And that would be very helpful. Say, I'm still in the doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have that problem too. Because you're juggling many things.
I think we all have that problem, because we're juggling a million things.
Mm-hmm. Not a million, but enough to make my
Enough to go.
my
"What was
brain
that? I just had
exactly.
to answer a student on a problem, and now I was just thinking about that problem and how to get that back to them. Now, what was I doing?
So the next thing I want to talk about in Logseq is flashcards, and I couldn't start talking about flashcards without mentioning this National Science Foundation grant that the college was a part of, building opportunities for STEM success. So I've got it linked in there. The videos that your colleagues made are so useful. All kinds of topics on there, flashcards, note-taking, spaced practice. They did a fantastic job. Yes.
And where do we get that link?
I've got it right there in the presentation, and if you scan that, you'll have a link to the full presentation. So you have all the links that I have.
Oh, I
in here.
do, because I just got both, I just got the Notions app.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's in Notion.
When I scanned this, they both came up Notions.
Yes,
Okay,
they're both
okay,
Notion.
Okay, thank you.
So Amanda, okay, so you said that, so this is only like, you can type into words. Is there any math equation editor, like you can?
Yeah,
can you-
you're gonna see that in just a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me show it to you.
Continue with Google. Which one?
We will continue with email down here. I usually continue.
Oh, is it? Is it
Do you
asking you to
use
sign up with the app?
FSCJ email address?
Yeah, it takes you to sign, it takes you to download the app.
You
Oh,
can get it
okay.
free, I think you can get it
Both-
free. I
You
think.
should be able to just view.
Both pulled up the app for me.
Okay, you should be able to just view it in your browser.
No,
It's not letting you.
It doesn't.
no, we went to the app.
Okay. Let's do that at the end of the presentation, and I'll figure out why it's making you sign up, because you should be able to just view it.
Okay.
Um,
But I don't mind signing up for it. Once I get in, then, yeah, we just have to, at the end, if you can help us get into the app.
absolutely, yeah,
help us get
absolutely.
into the app.
So we need to sign up with my FSCJ address?
But we'll have to figure that out in a minute. That's,
Yeah,
Amanda's
but
gonna help us at the end.
I'll help you guys get into the app, but
Yeah.
I wanted you to have all the links to everything.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're saying that there already are things developed that, are we permitted to be able to use them?
for
Boss.
oh yes.
Okay,
Yes, Boss
Okay.
is, the website is in our LibGuides, the college's LibGuides.
oh, it is.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
And if you just type in Google FSCJ Boss, it's the first thing that comes up
Oh, okay.
in the LibGuides. And they've created videos for talking about kind of like the do's and don'ts of study skills, flashcards, note-taking, all kinds of study practices. Very, very good set of resources. So the thing that you see on the right here is a screenshot from the flashcard video about the benefits of flashcards, which I just think is fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
active recall, random order, spaced repetition, enhancing the retention. What I'm going to show you today is not physical index cards. I'm going to show you how you can do flashcards in the app. So even more portable than having a stack of index cards.
I have two questions. Was this the grant that was a couple years ago that Holly did
Yes.
the Pomodoro
Yes.
and all that? Okay. And then the other thing is, when we learn about the flashcards, are these things that the students will be able to download?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the students,
In other words, how do the students get the flashcards?
well, I'll definitely talk about that. So I've got a template that I'm going to share with you guys in Notion, and I'm going to talk about in Logseq how you could do it if you prefer that app. So that's actually the next thing. So let's talk about how you do flashcards in Logseq. So in Logseq, where you can type anywhere in your journal on a page. And I started to write what is a rational function. That would be like the front of your flashcard. I tagged it with #card or #card. And it's going to create a flashcard with this information. I've on the next line, which is tabbed over, that's going to be the back side of the card. So what you put underneath it is the back side of the card. I did this example to show you how you have to write math in this app. It uses a LaTeX language, and then it renders it. So you can see I typed $$ to indicate that I was starting this math language. And then I'm typing my math here. If I want to type a fraction, I have to type it in a certain way. And then I close it out with $$, and you can see what it looks like here when you actually see it rendered in the fraction form. So I've created this flashcard, and Logseq automatically has this in there. You don't have to create this. It's always there, this flashcard tab, and you can click on it, and it's going to present to you a flashcard. You can click on the bottom, show answers once you're ready to check to see if you got it right. And then on the bottom there, it has forgotten, took a while to recall, and remembered. And then the app calculates when the student should see this card next based on which answer they made. If you put forgotten, it's going to come shuffle back in their deck sooner than if you clicked remember. So we had a question come up last night about, well, if I want to create the flashcards myself, how would I create them for my students in Logseq? And so I looked at that last night. I can create a text file. This is the text file of the 2 flashcards I showed you guys. And I could email this text file to my students. They could copy this text into their own Logseq app, and now they have all the flashcards that you created for them.
Which is to copy paste?
Copy paste into the app. So they would download the app, copy and paste somewhere in the app. You see it's got the language in there that the app needs to tag that with a card. And then it'll show up in their flashcard deck.
Is there a way, as going forward, I don't know if this has been figured out. So I guess one thing one could do would be in Canvas. You could say flashcards, and then you could give all of this, and then just say copy it and put it into Logseq.
Exactly, yeah. And this is kind of similar to what Lynn's doing now, except she's doing it without the app. She has a document that she has in Canvas with what your flashcards should look like, and it says, okay, write this on the front of your index card, write this on the back of your index card, so the students would make the flashcards themselves. So she gives them the document on what the flashcards could look like. So I could see her transitioning to, now I'm going to make this text file.
Yes.
And then the students the students don't even have to handwrite it. Just copy it, paste it into the app, and you have the flashcards for your students.
Right. And I just think that, even if we had a group that wanted to get together for a particular, a particular class, get together and make some flashcards that all we have to do is just copy that, put it in Canvas, copy it, and then, because I think our students are much more familiar with, and the flashcards give them that opportunity of it shuffling randomly for them.
Yep.
I think that that's something that they would take to, at least most of our younger students would.
I think so, yeah.
Rather than, I think a lot of times students don't make flashcards because they have to write them out, They have to write them out and go all that extra. And here it's done.
Yep, it's done, and they just have to use it. It's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, it really is.
So this is just one thing I want to show you real fast because I just found this morning. You know, I said the data is stored on your computer. So you can actually go into the files and see what it looks like. So I went into what it looks like, the flashcard, and the app, once you start practicing with the flashcards, it starts to do these little calculations on when the student looked at it, when they should see it next, what was their score on it. I don't know exactly what that means yet, but I think it's the 3 questions, whether you put it as forgotten, took a while to remember, or that you knew it. So the app is doing that calculation for the student, which I think is really awesome. And like I said, it's going to reshuffle it in the deck in a few days for them to see it again the next day if it's something they marked as forgotten. So very, very cool stuff. Okay, now the other app I'm using for my lecture notes. So I wanted to give you a before and after. Before you make a notebook, you carry it to class every day, and it has my little handwritten notes of what I want to talk about in the class. This is when I was first starting to teach calculus, and it is actually way more detailed than my normal notes would be. My normal notes are like 2 definitions and a few examples, and we're winging it. I want to show you what it looks like now in Notion. This is what my notes look like now. And this is, something that I worked on during the pandemic, transferring the pencil and paper stuff to Notion. And it didn't stop with just transferring exactly what was there. What I found was that my creativity was really unlocked. So rather than having this like very stale piece of paper that I couldn't move things around on if I wanted to change the order or change something around, when I was doing it in here, I just felt so creative and I could do exactly what I needed, organize it exactly the way that I wanted to. So this is a sample, and I'm using this sample to just try to show you some of the features that you can add to your notes. This one right here is a call out block. So if you're putting in a definition, a tip, a formula, or something, you can make it stand out in your notes. My favorite feature, the toggle, being able to collapse and open up. So if I want to only show what is the overview of this lecture, putting the main topics and then going into the details as we go through.
Can you project this?
This is Notion.
So you could actually use it as PowerPoint slides.
And that's exactly my next bullet
Okay.
on Notion is that I do use it as a presentation tool as well. I'm using it as a presentation tool right now.
Okay.
So yes, and that's one of the things I really like about this feature, this toggle feature, is we can see the big picture and then we can dive into the details as we go.
Can you cut and paste from the web in this?
You should be able to, like for example, this picture right here.
Or copy and paste from the web.
This is an image I found on the internet.
Okay.
That I put into my notes. Some of the other images are ones that I make, but that's one I pulled. So another thing I really like about it is, the images that are stored on here, you can store in their original size. So they may look like a small image on the notes or something that I've printed, but during class I can click on it and show the full picture and look at the details with the students.
Now, Amanda, while you're doing it right now, you can do like instant editing, like on your computer.
To the notes?
Yeah.
You can.
That you have it now.
I can.
You can.
Mm-hmm. So right now I have it in.
Can you repeat what Marwan said?
Marwan asked, can I edit right now?
Oh, okay.
Edit the notes. So I see a mistake, I can fix it.
Oh.
So right now I've got it locked. The page is, actually no, it's not locked. But I can lock the page so that it's not, I can't edit it. And I can unlock the page so it can be edited. So I can go in and just type on a line, make a change, and fix it right away. Mhm.
Amanda, do the
Yes.
student have access to this?
Well, I'm hoping they do. I'm concerned that your scan didn't let you go to the link. But yes, so what I do for mine is I've actually turned this into like a guided notes. So I give them this document printed. And usually there are some blanks on there and they can fill in whatever we talk about in class.
So you print this for them?
I print it for them, yeah. I also have it in my Canvas shell for my online students. So I've got a recorded lecture. They have the guided notes that match the recorded lecture, and they can print it themselves. Or if they want to load it into some note-taking app, they can use it on their note-taking app.
Also, can you scan some pages and put it over there? Or you can?
Yeah,
You can
it's
scan?
it's images. These are images. So if you have an image, you can put it in there. If you have PDF files, links, all that stuff can be put in there. You can see that there's math writing in here as well. Blocks of math. Very similar to what you saw in Logseq. It uses that LaTeX language, so you need to know how to type out what a fraction looks like or exponents and things like that. But once you learn it, it's not too bad. And if you don't know how to do something, you can look it up. There are documents out there that show you how do you type a matrix or how do you type a piecewise function. And you can copy theirs and edit it the way you need to. So this is what my notes look like now. Let me get back.
How's the graph feature work here? If you want to make a graph.
If I want to it doesn't have a make a graph feature in the app. I use a separate app and then I put the picture into the app. So you can have basic blocks. This is what you would fill your notes with. So you have all these choices. You can put text, page, to-do lists, headings, tables, bulleted lists, numbered lists, toggles, quotes, dividers. So you have all these options that you can put on your page. The page is like your workspace, and it's also a file system. So this is how I've got my notes organized. I have a page of pages. So all of these are pages for the different courses. If you click on one of the pages, I now have more pages, one for every section. And then when I get to a particular section, this is the lecture notes for that section. So the difference is the page is not just a folder, it's your workspace where you put all the information. For the math equations, you can put inline or block equations. When I first started using Notion, they only had the option of the block equation. And even though I liked the app a lot, I knew it was never going to work for me if I wasn't able to do the inline. And then it introduced the inline, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I went crazy using it. So here's an example of inline. There's the math just right in the middle of a sentence versus here, a block equation. So can you tell the difference that this is taking up the entire column? That block is taking from left to right the entire column, whereas the inline is just taking up whatever space that equation takes up. I've already mentioned call-out blocks. You can put things in columns, so organize it the way you want. Now this one's a really cool one that they introduced recently, synced blocks. So we all know that there's overlap among our courses, and there are courses that have prerequisite information that sometimes we want to go over. So you can actually take a piece of your notes and sync it to another place in your notebook. So you're only editing it in one place and it's changing it everywhere for you. Copy and share. There are all these templates that people are out there on the internet creating. You can buy them. You can download some of them for free. But people get creative and use Notion to make these templates. So these are some of the ones that are featured on the Notion website. Somebody made a budget manager, a Kanban board, a college planner, and like the budget manager, that one costs $5, but it looks like the other two are free. And so you can download somebody else's template that they've made and then try to use it. You can export. You can export your notes as a PDF. You can export it to that markdown format that I talked about earlier, the one that is used in Logseq. So since you can export it, you can put it in other apps if you decide at some point, I don't want to use Notion anymore, or I don't want to use Logseq anymore. You've got the files that then you can take to another app that uses that same markdown language. As a presentation tool, this is what students would see in my lecture. In person and online, I do it the same way. On the left-hand side, I've got Notion, my Notion notes. On the right-hand side, I've got my Microsoft whiteboard, which I use with my laptop here. And I'll display the Notion notes. If we get to an example that I want to work out with them, I go to my whiteboard and I write it on the whiteboard. I already mentioned about the images, liking being able to zoom in on a picture, but I'm also able to take that image from my Notion notes and copy it onto my whiteboard. And if I want to do writing on it during the lecture, I can. You can embed links, store files. Here I've got a Desmos link that I can link to and talk about with my students. I've got a file here. This is the graph program that I make my pictures in. Sometimes I go into a lecture not really looking through what I'm going to be talking about. And maybe I didn't remember that there was this file that I have that I want to show them. Now, because I've embedded in my notes, it's a reminder that I want to talk about, and it's right there. I just click on it and I can download it and work with it with my students. I also like that I have all of my other notes in the same place. So if I'm in a lecture and someone asks a question about what we did last class or the week before, or somebody asks about something that's in a previous class, I can go find my notes for that topic and show it. And so I have the resources that I'm looking for at my fingertips. I also have flashcards in Notion, and this is something I've been working really hard on the last month, so I'm really excited about it. But this is where it started. Online on YouTube, I found this guy. He's studying to be a doctor in the UK, and he wrote this Notion template about flashcards and spaced repetition. So it was kind of like hitting all my buttons. Notion, flashcards, the spaced repetition from the Boss Grant. And so he put this out there, and I downloaded his template. And this is what he did. He created a dashboard with he didn't put flashcards in. He's expecting people to make their own flashcards, but he put a sample flashcard there. And then if you look at the details, you've got your flashcard, and he added these properties to the flashcard. Level 1 through 10, a date, the date you got it wrong, and the date next. Now, if you look at the next column, you see it's got that sigma, that Greek letter sigma. In Notion, that means that column is a calculated column. There's a formula that he used to calculate when to look at that next. So he's used the level of the card and when the student got it wrong to calculate when that student should view that card again. So very similar to what we saw in Logseq, except for it's not built into the system. This guy, Connor, made it. So here's Connor's formula, if you're curious. He took the date wrong. He used powers of 2 right here, a power of 2, and the level. So he's spacing out the cards. If someone marks that this card is a level 10 for me, meaning I know it really well, I'm not going to see that card tomorrow or next week. I'm going to see it way far away. So it's allowing you to space out the cards more to where the ones that you're viewing next are the ones that you really don't know. So I was really blown away by this. And then you need to have this sort as well. You would sort the cards by next so that the ones you need to look at next are showing up first. So obviously I was really excited about that, but I want to see how can I use it for my students. And what I wanted to do was build a deck of flashcards for my students. And Connor's template, although amazing, is just not going to work for an existing deck of cards. It's really meant for an individual student making their own cards because they know what they want to look at and how often they want to look at it. For my purposes, if I build a deck for my students, let's say I build 100 cards for my calculus class, some of those cards are relevant to week 1 and some of them are relevant to week 15. And if I give them all of those cards at once, they're going to start getting cards that are not relevant to them at that particular moment in the semester. So I took Connor's template and I start to make changes to it so that I could make it fit that format that I wanted for building a deck for my class. I added a tag for week number and assessment, so I can tag the card. It's on test 1. It's going to show up during week 1, and then I was able to calculate a date introduced. So I set the semester start date using what week that card shows up in. I can now calculate when that card is introduced, and I modified Connor's formula so now it's only going to show the card after the date that it's introduced. So I was able to put in an if statement to the card. That's the date introduced card. And then this one is the next. So I was able to put an if statement in the formula. If it's past the date introduced, then have the card show up. So I've got it sorted, just like Connor had, sorted by next card. And I've got all these extra little filters on here as well. You can filter so you're only looking at the cards with confidence level 1. You're only looking at the cards for the particular week that you're on. You're only looking at the cards for test 1. So I added those extra filters on there. So how can the students use these cards? They would have to sign up for Notion. They would duplicate my template that I've made, and then they can get started. They might have to set the semester start date, but they can get started viewing the cards right away because the cards that are appropriate for them are the ones that are going to show up. Once they review the card, they only have to change the date on that card and change their confidence level, and then it's going to reshuffle it in the deck based on their confidence.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So now we've looked at flashcards in both of these. Which one do you like better?
I'm more familiar with Notion with the flashcards. I'm just starting to learn about Logseq, so I don't know what preference I have right now. I'm getting kind of excited about Logseq and being able to just that one file.
Yeah.
You download the app, you put that one file in, and it
Yeah.
works. But then the issue there
Yeah.
is the date introduced.
That's what I
And-
was just thinking about.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe there's a way around that, but I don't know what it is yet. I'm gonna have to do, it took me weeks to figure out
Yes.
how to make this work.
Yeah, it seems to me that if you're using Logseq, which I think is really nice because you can copy the whole thing, you'd already have to have them say, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3, test 1.
Yeah.
Um,
My understanding is that there are ways to tag the cards as well. I was doing some reading in Logseq, but it's just not something that I've explored at this moment.
believe me, you know a whole lot.
Yeah, you put lot of effort. Yeah, she put lots.
I'm at the point, Amanda, where, okay,
Yeah,
just
how much?
give me all the language, please.
Yeah,
I'll
you
have
need
my
a special
students
language
copy it.
to type
I
in one,
want
you
it
know?
that's week 1, week 2,
Yeah.
week 3.
All right, well, let me end with this last part. Well, how can you get your students involved? If you're interested in using this, how can you get your students involved? I have just started this as an extra credit opportunity for my class. The students, I give them a list of what flashcards they can make. They choose, and they can't take what somebody else has chosen. I've given them index cards, and they write the front and the back of the card. They take a picture of the front, take a picture of the back, and they upload it to Canvas as an assignment. And then I can go through the assignments and download them, and I can add them to my deck. So here's where I've added my students' cards to the deck of flashcards. So they just have the cover photo is the front of the card. When you click on the page, the back of the card will be in the bottom part. So you don't even have to make the cards. You can have your students make the cards.
Now, but is this Notion or Logseq?
This is Notion.
So in Notion, you can pull in a photo,
You can pull in a photo. Yeah.
and then what about the back? You fill out the back with the.
I give them resources. So I'm giving them notes and references like look here to get this definition, look here to get this formula. And they're gonna put in on the back.
But do you take a picture of that too, or?
Well, they're doing it. So
They're putting it in Notion?
I'm putting it in Notion, but they're taking the picture. So
Yeah.
they take the picture of the front, take the
Yeah.
picture of the back, and they're uploading it to Canvas.
Yeah.
And then I can download it. I can download the picture from Canvas, and I've added it to my deck.
Right.
So when you, that second scan page, that's my deck, and you're gonna see my students' cards in there.
Okay, which we have to now log in to find
I'm
that.
hoping you should be able to see it. I can show you. Let me show you now what
Because we have to scan. Okay, now that's something that adding pictures.
Yeah.
So what I'm assuming is that one can go to YouTube and type this in and get a video on how to
how to
take a picture and add it to Notion to create a flashcard. Think I would find something like that on YouTube?
maybe, but I can help you with that either way.
Because
It's-
I really like that. I really like that, especially for participation in online classes
Yeah.
where you have limited ways to participate, or limited ways that I'm interested in participating.
So here's my deck.
Yep.
And the ones that you see on the bottom here are the ones that my students have made
Okay.
for week 2 of the semester.
I do just want to mention that we are 5 minutes over, so if anyone has other sessions or
Yes.
anything to go to.
Sorry about that. Thank you so
No,
much.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
This is really the end of the presentation. Here's the one the girl spent the most time on. So the cover photo that you saw was her front of the card, and then here
You didn't
is
see the
her back of
Oh,
the card,
Okay.
which I put in a toggle so they don't see right away.
Yeah.
And then once they decide, okay, I knew that or I didn't know that, they can change the confidence level,
Okay.
change the date here. So they say they reviewed it on that day,
Okay.
and then it's going to calculate for them based on the confidence level when they should see that card again.